Here are some reminders to help you get the most out of your Dive Math 8-7 CD. First, work the problems with me. Work every problem that I work, take every note down that I write on the board, work every problem with me. If a problem set has several practice problems with it, you should work the first couple along with me, then pause the CD and see if you can figure out the next one on your own. Fast forward to the answer. If you got it right, great, you can move on to the next one. If you got it wrong, you could rewind and see what you did incorrectly. Next, pause and rewind the CD until you understand a particular concept. That's the great thing about using this CD lecture, is that you can basically rewind the teacher. Also, if you've forgotten how to do a particular concept that was in a previous lesson, go back to that lesson and watch it again and understand it again. Take advantage of the technology that's in front of you. Pause and rewind the CD until you understand. Don't go on until you understand the concept. It's also important to do all the problems in the problem sets. And if you need more help, you can also do the practice problems at the beginning of each problem set. My practice problems in the CD lessons are different than those, so those will give you some extra help. And also the supplemental practice, many of the lessons have supplemental practice problems in the back of the 8-7 textbook, so use those as well if you need some extra help on a particular concept. Next, make sure you show your work on tests and on homework. The way you can tell if you're showing enough work is if you can tell when you make a mistake where your mistake was in that problem. So be neat and organized with your work. Split your paper in two, right down the middle of it, work problems on the left and the right of it, front and back, and put a box around your answer just like I do on the CD lessons. Finally, have a good attitude. The best math program in the world will not make a bit of difference if you have a bad attitude. If you're like, oh, I don't want to study, I don't want to do this. Have a good attitude. Maybe math isn't your favorite subject. That might be the reason you need this CD to help you, is because you struggle with math. That's okay. Not everybody's great at math. You don't have to be great at math, but you do have to have a good attitude. You have to make the best of every opportunity God puts in front of you. So be thankful that you have these CD lectures to help you with your math, and go out and make the most of this opportunity to learn, and I know God will bless you for your effort. Before you do Lesson 5, do Test A in the Test Masters. Hopefully by now you've gotten 100 on it already, and it would still be a good idea to do it and just time yourself and try to improve your time. See how fast you can get through them. Now these tests A, B, these lettered tests, those are something you can kind of blow off if you want to, but just remember, somewhere out there's somebody who's not blowing them off and they're working harder than you maybe, and someday you may have to compete with them for a job that you really, really want, and they'll probably get it instead of you if they've worked harder, have better grades, things like that. Make sure you are using the brain that you've been given and that you are using it to the best of your ability and trying really hard to learn everything that you can. Lesson 5 has two parts. The first part is on place value through 100 trillions, and then we'll be talking about reading and writing whole numbers. Now to do place value through 100 trillions, let's just work together on this and start at the far right of your paper and put a decimal point. And then we'll put just a bar, a space bar, to show the different places, and we'll call out what each one is. And so we have our decimal place, and the first one would be ones, then tens, then hundreds, then we put a comma, then we'll have thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, and a comma, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions, and a comma, billions, 10 billions, 100 billions, and a comma, and then trillions, 10 trillions, and 100 trillions. Let's go back through them again and count them. I'll just put a dot after I've counted each one of them. So start back at the far right again. You have your decimal point, tens, hundreds. Sorry, I skipped the ones. Ones, tens, then this one is the hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, hundred millions, billions, 10 billions, 100 billions, trillions, 10 trillions, 100 trillions. Now look at that number that I have there, 317 trillion, 222 billion, 187 million, 459,006. Answer those three questions. What number's in the trillions place, what number's in the 10 millions place, and then what place is the 4 in? Pause the CD and see if you can figure those out. Well, on A, the trillions place, well, you can just count starting from the far right side if you want to, and you'd have ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, 100 millions, trillions, you'd have a 2 in the trillions place. And then in the 10 millions place, you would have an 8 in the 10 millions place. And then on C, what place is the 4 in? We'll circle that 4. Just think about that. That's the 100,000s place. If you need to practice those different places out to the 100 trillions, just keep working on them until you can get every single one of those correct, because you'll need to know those for the next part. Now, we call this place value. We call each of those spaces, it has a particular place value. And so that means there's a value placed on the digit that you put there. And let's just think about this. Let's say if you had 637. The 6 is in the hundreds place, the 3 in the tens, and the 7 in the ones place. So that 6 really has a value of 600. And we could do an addition problem here. We call this expanded notation when we write it like this. We could add the 3, which is in the tens place, so that would really be a 30. Add it to that. And then the 7 is in the ones place, so that would just be a regular old 7. 600 plus 30 plus 7, that equals 637, right? Maybe you haven't thought about it like that before, but if you want to understand place value, that's an easy way to understand the value that has been placed on each digit. Write the problem out in expanded form like that. Another way to write it is 6, since it's the hundreds place, we just say times 100, and then plus 3 times 10 plus 7. We can group those factors together like that in the multiplication problems. Basically, you multiply the digit by its place value, and you can add them all together to get the number. That's what expanded form or expanded notation is about. Why don't you do a problem here? Write that number in expanded notation. Well, just look at your digits that you have. You have a 3, a 1, 2 zeros, and a 6. The 3 is in the 10,000s place, so you can write 3 times 10,000. That 3 actually has a value of 30,000. 3 times 10,000 is 30,000. Put that in parentheses and then add 1 times 1,000. And then the zeros, you don't do anything with those. And then the 6 is just in the ones place, so it's just 6. You could say 6 times 1 if you wanted to, just to be really technical about it. Because it's in the ones place, you just multiply by 1. So that would be the expanded notation for that problem. You multiply each digit by the value that has been placed on it because of its position in that number. Well, now let's talk about reading and writing whole numbers. What we'll do here is we'll write a word that's in digit form, we'll write it in word form, and then we'll do the reverse of that as well. We'll take a number that's been written in word form and write it in digit form. Here's a few rules before we get started that you'll need to know when you're taking a digit value and writing it in words. You put commas every third place value, just like you do when it's written in digit form. The numbers 21 to 99, those are hyphenated unless they end in 0, like a 20 or a 30 or 40, so on. And there's no place that you put an and in there. Sometimes when you say a number, like 239, you might say it 239, but you don't write it 200, the word and 39. You just write 239. No place for an and anywhere. So look at practice problem E. I want you to write that using words. 6,200,454,050,001. So you'll have 6 trillion, and then you put a comma. Just same spot there's a comma when it's written in digit form. You put that in the word form. Then 200 billion, comma. There's no hyphen between the 2 and the 100. The only places that you use hyphens are the numbers 21 through 99, except for if they end in a 0. Then next is 450-4 million. Then 50,000, and you don't put and 1, you just write 1, and you can put a period at the end too. And you can also capitalize the 6 at the beginning. Now, there aren't many times where you're going to need to write a digit form in numerical form or in word form like that, except for writing checks. That's the only time I can think of that I consistently need to write digit forms in word form is when I'm writing a check. And that's kind of important because you are writing a check, you want to make sure it's the right amount. So understanding place value, that's just a very basic thing that you need to know just to exist in normal everyday life. So make sure you understand the different place values. Now let's go the other way in practice problem F. Take that word form and write it in numerical form. So go ahead and pause the CD and see if you can figure that one out. What I do on these problems, I just go from one comma to the next one, and you can pretty much always get them right like that. 375 million, so I'll just write 375, put a comma. 223,000, so that'll be 2, 2, 3. 903, so another comma, 903. And so that would be the answer in digit form, taking it from word form and writing it in digit form. Let's do another 2 problems here, and these I want you to write the values in digit form, and you kind of have words and digits in these problems. Like practice problem G is 23 billion. Why don't you go ahead and pause the CD and see if you can figure out how to do both of those. The second one you may have not seen before, but if you have, go ahead and try to figure it out. Otherwise, I'll tell you what it is. So the first one, $23 billion. You put the dollar sign first, 23, and just think about where you are. You're in the billions. So now the next 3 places would be the millions. The next 3 places would be your thousands, and then you'd have your hundreds places. And that would be 23 billion there. And that's your answer. Now the next one is the K stands for thousand. So that's $32,000 is what that is. And sometimes you see that like maybe in a classified ad or something, instead of writing out $32,000 like this, in a classified ad, like in the newspaper or in a magazine, you are charged by how many characters you use. And so to save some space, you just put a K, which stands for thousand. And that's how you would write 32,000 in digit form, or 32K in this case. And like I said earlier, that's one of the most important reasons to understand place value and be able to write a numerical value in word form is when you're dealing with money, and in particular writing checks and things like that. Okay, well that's all for lesson 5.